Good evening. The time is 7:03. We will call the March 21st, 2022 Oak Park Board of Education meeting to order. Ms. Greer, would you please call the roll?
Cochran, Alvin,
Here.
Goodfriend. Here. Hoda.
Here.
Klein, Lunkins. Here. And Smith.
Here.
Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum. The public will be provided with an opportunity to comment at the meeting under public comments. Members of the public who wish to provide public comment must fill out a public comment card and may bring the card to the stage and hand it to Trustee Albert Smith to my left at the beginning of the meeting or at any point before we arrive at the public comment section of the agenda. Recitation of the district mission and vision. Trustee Hoyda, would you please do the honors?
Our mission is our inclusive learning community provides the best academic and social experiences by educating the whole child, one child at a time. And our vision is cultivating visionary leaders and compassionate citizens to be engaged in the global community.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda in order of business. The agenda was shared with us prior to this evening's meeting. Are there any additions to the agenda as it's presented? If none, without objection, we'll pass the agenda by unanimous consent. Is there any objection? Hearing none, we will pass the agenda by unanimous consent and go to the consent agenda where we have two items on the consent agenda this evening, approval of minutes and the financial statements from December 2021. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, if we can pass this with unanimous consent. If there are no objections or any objections to passing this with unanimous consent. Okay, yeah, it is so passed, and we will move into presentations. And the first presentation this evening is Oak Park School Staffing and Perception Data. Carol Diglio, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. A bit of a trek to get there, but it's all good.
Good thing I came down here because here's my keys. They're left over here. Okay, so good evening. I'm going to take my mask off down here so you can hear me. It's always good to be able to bring the board up to speed. While the information I'm going to share this evening may not seem like happy news, I think it's important news. I also think it's important that we have a clear understanding of where we are as a district, especially when we are looking at budget for next year, staffing that we need, and some other critical decisions that occur during this time of the year. We're going to talk about staffing in what we believe to be the district needs at this time, although that may change depending on enrollment. When we talk about staffing, it can be very tricky because it's based on how many students that we have. And while we have done a really excellent job on recruiting students, we brought in nearly 800 students last year, we also lost nearly 800 students. So when you are projecting enrollment and projecting staffing and budget, those are three moving parts that could be very challenging in a school of choice. And also on the tails of COVID. So I've seen a lot of this, and some people think I don't see it. I see it and react to it and do a lot behind the scenes. Dear HR department, please accept my resignation. Sincerely yours. We have changed how we operate in HR. We immediately ask why people are leaving. We keep track of that in a large spreadsheet. I'll often ask the principals to walk down to classrooms and talk with colleagues and see if we can get some deeper perception or even help them to make a different decision. But this has been a very tumultuous year for us. When I say us, I'm often referring to education, not just Oak Park. I always speak from an advocate perspective for teachers, administrators, students, paras, you name it. I'm here representing Oak Park and working for Oak Park, but I also like to advocate for education across the state. I changed my presentation at the last second a little bit because I had an opportunity to make it to one of the M&A days last week, and that's the Michigan Negotiation Association. And I grabbed some data. When we look at the state of the state of the union, the state of the county, we need to start talking about the state of education specifically. If you look at between 2006 and 2019, we've seen a teacher prep go down as far as 56%, meaning since 2006, 56% fewer educators or fewer college-bound students are choosing education as their profession. And we look at, of the 56% being down, only about 59% are completing, meaning I'm gonna start as a teacher or enroll as a teacher in my freshman year, but by my junior, senior year, I'm switching careers. So that's a double whammy if you look at that data. Since 2006, the teacher net workforce has declined by average at 70.9%. And Michigan comes in #1 for workforce. We are down 71%. We are #1 in the nation for decline of individuals going into education. When I started my career in administration, I went to all the job fairs. They were elbow to elbow, standing room only. We would stay 3 hours past the time in which the job fair closed, making sure we interviewed every student that stood in line for us. Now when you go to job fairs, you can roll a bowling alley down every aisle. The last time I physically got to see job fairs before COVID and before I retired was 2017, and it was dire. And just last week, I did a job fair with EMU. I opened myself up to 25 slots. I made myself available for 25 slots. I had 2 students sign up to talk to me out of 25. So there is a major decline, and when we see people leaving, many of our people are leaving the profession. We've seen that for quite some time now. Education used to be a profession where people would hang on for 40 to 45 years. Now we see people leaving. If they were able to buy 5, they're getting their 25 in and cashing in their 5 years and leaving before their time. One thing that we're up against, and we talk about salaries and wanting to support our staff all the time, but when we look at teachers' salary, now this isn't just Oak Park. When I go to college as a teacher and I'm graduating and walking down the aisle to get my diploma, my counterpart who's not going into education is likely making about 20% more than me right out of the gates. So I'm leaving with the same amount of debt, about $100,000 to become a teacher, and I'm going into a job that on average starts about $38,000. 19.2% lower than my colleagues or my friends that I went to college with. While we've improved our step 1 to just over 42,000, that's pretty good in comparison, but pretty good for taking care of kids, teaching kids, supporting kids, social emotional learning of kids, graduation of kids, all of that. And we're averaging around 38,000 a year for new teachers. It's not doing what it used to in the old days, because we used to give them a great retirement package. We used to pay for all their insurance. We used to have a lot of other benefits in place that would offset salary. But since 2011, a lot of that has been taken away. So when we try and recruit or maintain or sustain our teachers, they have a lot to think about. And I'm saying this as a profession, not just directing it to Oak Park. As a profession, we have to do better. And board members and administrators, teachers alike, need to do better for our teachers, which ultimately does better for our kids. We need great teachers in front of kids. When I look at this data, initial certifications, I'm not going to go into great detail about this, but I sent you the document in which I pulled these next slides from. It is frightening to think that we have over 450 school districts in our state, yet we're only producing 4,323 graduates a year going into the teaching force. When you go to job fairs in person, or when you used to pre-COVID, there would be tables from all over the nation: Alaska, California, Texas, Florida, North Carolina. For years and years, they came to Michigan to recruit because we produced the most teachers. And now we're the top, 71% fewer in the country. So I would go and talk with all of the tables. They, first of all, would be starting salaries around $51,000, but they would top off pretty quickly. But they would say, this is where we come. In 2017, I got contacted because a magazine, the Rust Belt, wanted to use my pictures that I posted at job fairs. Every caption, 10:58 at EMU, Michigan State Central, same time, same caption, every day on Twitter. And the magazine picked it up, and they wanted to use my pictures. I was like, absolutely. And I said, what is your story about? She said, our story is about how everyone comes to Michigan to recruit. I said, we don't have the recruits anymore. We have to go out of state, and that's not boding well for us at all either. So this has been a crisis for a while. When you look at initial teaching endorsements, look at this scale. We only graduated 12 bilingual teachers. We've been posting an ELL paraprofessional all year just to recruit a para. When you look at, there's 12. How are we splitting up 12 bilingual educators a year? 19 technology education teachers a year. Technology is not just the future, it's the here and now, it's the present. 2,190 elementary teachers in the 2019-20 graduation class. When I was in HR in the 2015 or 16, I had 1,700 applicants for one job. 1,700, and now we're only graduating 2,100 a year. So this is what we're up against when we're trying to fill vacancies. Our CTE is another area that we need to do better at. One finance, one hospitality, one human services teacher. This is what we're graduating with endorsements. 13 agriculture, 5 architect and construction, 23 business management. These are granted during the 2019-20 academic school year of colleges all over the state. These are college prep schools. When you look at teaching certificates, there's about 150,000 in our state, and only 84,842 are actually using their certification. Nearly half of our teachers who have a teaching cert are choosing not to be employed in a teaching position. And then certification, progression, and renewal. When you get your teacher cert, you're always going to school. Every 5 years, you have to renew your certification. That holds true for licensing or certificates for administration, same thing. Your counselors have to renew, your social workers, your psychs, we all have to renew our certification. Look at these 3 lines. The yellow line is certification that lapsed. The blue line are number of certifications that have progressed. So in 2015, 4,286 students or graduates had their certification, and nearly 1,400 of them let them just lapse. They just let them expire. And when it expires, it's difficult to get back. This is also real. We talk about this. One of the workshops I went to last Thursday was a really well done workshop about how we inspire our workplace more. But I want to say, this can't just be administration. It can't just be the Board of Education. It can't just be teachers. It can't just be building principals. It has to be a collective group of people that have the same goal in mind, that want to lift each other up to move in the same direction. It can't fall on one group's shoulders. It just can't. And here's what we see. We see signs of burnout. A lot of folks with headaches, Sunday blues, sense of apathy, feeling depleted, irritable, or losing their patience or temper. We work with kids. Our patients need to be as long as the day. We work with children. But what our staff is feeling is real. And this isn't just in education, it's in other areas, other professions of service. Some of you on the stage might feel that in your own workplace, but we have to be more mindful of how people are feeling. People come to a place of business and work when they feel connected, when they feel cared for, when they feel heard, when they feel that the group that is leading them is together and on the same page. And when we don't demonstrate that, this comes on faster and more furious. And so it is a concern. We are hiring. We're hiring a lot, approximately 58 staff members, 58. Some of them have been posted for a while, but we are hiring. This is the exciting part. Lessinger, these are all new positions. So this is exciting to see Brandy up here doing her presentations and to look at what we're hiring for Lessinger Early Childhood Center. We're looking for 4 GSRP teachers because we're going from 7 classrooms to 10. We're looking for GSRP associate teachers, 3 of them. We're looking for GSRP professionals. Ms. North explained that we're going from a 16-child to adult program to 18 and 3. That's why you see those 13 paraprofessionals. Transitional kindergarten teachers, 2, preschool teacher, 1, and a media center paraprofessional. These are all new. This is exciting. This is good stuff right here. This is not as bad as we seen earlier, but this is elementary, OPA, and NOVA. We need art teachers. We've been pushing and looking at alternative art education that hasn't panned out. A lot of those companies went under during COVID. But the elementary splits an art teacher. They need 1. We need 1 lower and 1 upper elementary teacher as of right now, and I hope it stays there. Middle school, we need an art teacher, but I believe we found one. Mr. Falk at Nova needs 1 6/8 self-contained, and then we need an ELA teacher at the middle school. The high school we have a lot of work there. We need an ELA teacher, 2 maths, although one of my job fair out of the 2 that I talked to, I have a follow-up with him this week, so I'm hoping to get a math teacher once he graduates in April. We are still looking for a band teacher. As of last week, I think we only had 5 applicants, and it's been up most of the winter. Title I teacher, a social studies teacher, and a counselor. Although I think that counselor is also moving towards HR, so that might come down as well. Our support staff, paras, we need 12, in addition to the 13 for GSRP. Special education, Jackie has been feverishly trying to fill these positions, but it's very competitive out there. Our special ed staff are needed in across the state. You can see we're looking for 3 psychologists, a social worker, a CI teacher, an ASD teacher, and a resource room teacher. This is going to be updated. This changed a little bit today, and this will change slightly, but we're still looking there. We need a school nurse. We have changed our strategy, and we're trying to hire an HVAC skilled maintenance in-house because that's been very difficult to keep. And as you all know, we have a superintendent that we are searching for, and that's the Board of Education's hire. That's why it says BOE there. So if you look at the daunting, join us, now hiring, we have done lots of strategies. We partnered with iHeartRadio ads, social media, any way we can. Brandon has been very good about keeping the website updated for us and getting the social media out, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Job fairs have not bode very well for us, but we're going to 3. I did EMU. I'm going to go to Toledo. I'm going to go down to Ohio to see if I can recruit face-to-face there. And then Grand Valley is still an online or remote only. We've worked with hazard pay to make sure we're honoring our staff financially. The hard part is that it's not on schedule. They all were paid what they would have been paid on schedule, but being on schedule makes a difference for them in retirement. We have 7 different letters of agreement that allows for additional pay for our teachers who have been having to double up classes, cover for each other, sub on their lunches because of the shortfalls. We network constantly. We've had to contract some of our special education professionals, and we do look at, while they are trying to promote and provide other opportunities for alternative certification, we'll do that. We will partner with different organizations to go an alternative route. We make sure we go to all the in-services so we learn about those alternative routes, but we have our work cut out for us before next September. So that's what the workforce looks like and what our workforce looks like. One of the things that we've been asking multiple times this year is, do we talk with our staff when they leave? Absolutely. We call, we ask, we get information in the moment, and most of our staff's been very candid and fair. In 2020, we sat down and designed an exit survey, and we found that a lot of people, when they're leaving an organization, they don't want to come face-to-face. So we give an option. We give a face-to-face option where you can come talk to myself, and I'll follow the same exit interview. But we also do an online option. As soon as someone puts in their resignation and it's accepted from the Office of Human Resources, we send them a link and ask them for their feedback. At first, we were doing it through their personal email and their final letter. They get a termination letter, but now we changed our strategy up while they're still in the district, and we've asked them to respond before they leave. And between 2019 and 2021, we lost 47 teachers. Then since July 1 of this school year, July 1 of 2021, we have lost 45 staff members. We were the same amount in half the time. And again, we're seeing this across the state, but it sure does hurt when it's in your own home. We have about a 32% response rate, which is pretty good. And like I just said, we give 2 options, online or in person. Some of the things that come to the top is salary, culture, relationships, and trust. 4 things we can focus and work on, I think. I know we can. I took apart the survey so you can see, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this area, but I want to show you or give you a feel. We know there's the Great Resignation. The majority of our staff that have left have been in the teaching area. Building location, you can see the different percentage. It's kind of all over the district. And this is of the 47 and 45, we had 28 responses. Since I did this, we had 1 more response, so it's just off by 1 response. Reason for departing, you can see the blue, 64% have resigned and they're taking jobs in another district. And then 10%, just almost 11% resigned, and it's for personal reasons. So you see people are making the decision for separation. Voluntary is all over, but the majority says inadequate salaries. Involuntary, meaning that you were asked to leave, 90% was inapplicable, but about 9% have left due to disciplinary reasons. We have open-ended questions. Some of the things that came to the top: what could have prevented you from leaving? Money and steps, negative culture, lack of follow-through at the building, with leadership at the building level, disrespected by support staff, personal issues. A lot of people became caretakers, moved out of state. A lot of people moved out of state. Spouse was transferred. I moved to take a job closer to home. Organization and consistency. 2 people plan to return. Since we were remote, a lot of people want that hybrid model. Being held accountable. One person said, "You held me accountable, so I had to leave. You held me accountable, so I'm out." And nothing, they just planned to retire. When we looked at professional development and training, you got to remember this is from 2019 to current. We've changed the structure of our training and professional development thanks to Ms. Baptiste's office and her team. There's way more collaboration now with our professional development and how that's conducted. The topics are very relevant to what we're doing in the district to move the district forward. But you can see district provided, blue is excellent, red is good, fair is orange, poor is green. So provided professional development that met my professional needs. How would you rate the training? How would you rate, did the training improve my skills? And how would you describe your level of professional growth? So while this is, 32% of our group, we always are looking to improve, and you can see that's been in motion for the last couple of years, and I think moving in the right direction. Management and leadership, how would you rate the following? Direct supervisors, management style, received from your feedback from your direct supervisor, level of support, direct supervisor's ability to move the district mission and vision forward, and direct supervisor's ability to model and promote a positive culture. Blue, red, orange, and green, from excellent to poor. How would you rate direct supervisors maintain effective communication, comfort level going to your direct supervisor, when there's a problem, your direct supervisor finds a solution. Describe the comfort level of going to your direct supervisor for support. It kind of drops off. And then the overall leadership style of the administrative offices. A lot of change, for sure, to consider. Administrative offices, leadership team's ability to move the district and mission, the ability to model and promote positive culture, the Board of Education's overall leadership style, the Board of Education's ability to model and promote a positive culture, and the Board of Education's ability to move the district's mission, vision, and goals forward. Reality check. A lot of different questions here. Your work is being aligned with your personal goals, compensation, you can see where that weighs in, benefits, resources, and culture. Look at the culture. It's an reoccurring theme, and I think, like I said earlier, we need to change our mindset about culture. We all have responsibility for the culture.
Amen.
How satisfied were you with your culture of your building, internal communications, support you received, coaching and direction from your supervisor, and promotion opportunities? How satisfied were you with interaction with your peers, interactions with administration, interaction with customers? You can see our interactions, whether it's with each other, with our leadership teams, with our colleagues, with our parents. It's kind of flatline. There's a lot of work there. We have seen great improvement in our technology area. Jim, you should be proud of this. There's great feedback with technology resources, leadership accountability, and staff accountability. You can see those are dipping a little on the low end. What did you like most about your working here? People say they love the staff and co-workers, although the data would say a little different. I think that there's some things going on there. Staff love the students. We all love to hear that. Building peers and colleagues, building administrators, families, professional growth, special ed staff and families, and the mission of the district. So while the data might say something, the written responses said a little bit differently. And then what did you like least about working here? Lack of communication and fairness with salaries, undervalued profession, chaotic and stressful work environment, lack of leadership, anxiety coming to work, lack of parent involvement, student behavior, lack of discipline, lack of fair and transparent systems at the building administrative level, ancillary staff not held accountable, and staff not being held accountable. Would you recommend Oak Park? No. More than half say no. What are your future plans? People who left someone became a foster care worker. 10 of the responses are going to continue teaching. So at least half of the 28 we know we're going to teach somewhere else. Someone was becoming a reading teacher, a volunteer at their church, changing careers altogether. A few folks were getting promotions, whether it was an assistant soup, in special ed, literacy coach, a principal. And then there were some that were not sure. They were leaving the profession but not sure what direction they were going in. Would you come back? 62% said yes, they would come back. And final thoughts. There's a lot in here, and as I've shared with you over the year, and I sure wish Ms. Corcoran was here, because I think this would have helped to answer some of her questions throughout the year. There's work to be done. This is hard work, and there's been a lot of change. And for any organization to make substantial change, it takes about 3 to 6 years. And it has to be a shared ownership, is what I'll say over and over again. Communication is key, relationships is important, and finding a way to meet our staff needs on a level where they feel that they are compensated fairly is important. We all know that that is based on a lot of moving parts: state aid, student enrollment, and some of the other funds that come through. You'll see me end most of my PowerPoints with some type of picture like this. Kids are counting on us. We're a school of choice. Families pick Oak Park because they think it's a better opportunity, and we just need to keep fighting to deliver that better opportunity. But at the core of everything we do, every decision needs to have kids at the core of it. And for that, we'll keep pushing hard and getting the best people in front of kids. I'd like to answer any questions, if there's any questions from the board.
Thank you for that thorough presentation. Are there any questions from members of the board? Trustee Smith.
Yeah. Ms. Diglio, thank you for that thorough presentation. I looked at it, and sometimes the truth hurts, but it's an eye opener.
Yes.
My hat's off to a lot of the teachers. I tried actually teaching one time myself for about 6 months, and it's a whole total different animal. So my hat's off to all you educators. I'm curious here in regards to the competitive salaries that are going throughout Michigan. Say for example, I think Detroit Public Schools has a larger base, more schools, and how do we move in that direction in regards? I know I know you said it has a lot of moving parts, but how do we compete?
I think one of the key things that is happening is Lessinger. I think getting families in here early on and getting them to trust and see Oak Park for what it is, and give families a really good introduction to Oak Park, and then carrying that through to the elementary and building on it at the middle school and high school is key. The hard part is the thing that we have to change, Mr. Smith, is we have to keep kids in the district.
Right.
We lose too many kids every year. We work so hard to enroll new students, but we're not keeping them. And why aren't we keeping them? I think we have to promote more programming as we build and get that, but it's hard to start a new program when we don't have the kids, because that costs money. So one of the things that before COVID hit, we were working super hard to give more choice to kids in the areas of elective courses. We were trying to push more of the advanced placement classes. But in order to run that, we have to have students. And when our students decline at the high school level, it's hard to sustain running classes with just 10 kids in it. Really, by any golden rule across the state, you want to run a class with about 20 students if it wasn't a specialty class, like students with IEPs or English language learners. Some of our classes that are for providing kids with opportunities to grow in areas where they need more support. But we have to promote and enroll, but we have to keep who we're enrolling. The same as we have to keep the folks we hire. You've seen a presentation on the rigorous hiring process. We're not waffling from that. We still are being very selective. But we want to do the hard work on the front end of hiring and not on the back end of letting people go. The other thing with a place like Detroit, they had, I think, $8.8 billion in ESSER funds. They're giving $15,000 signing bonuses over 3 years. We lost a ton of staff to Detroit this year, a ton. It was heartbreaking. Nothing against Detroit, but we're the little engine that can. And it was hard to see folks leave and us not have much to do other than offer our ESSER funds in hazard pay and other ways. But it's important that we stay strong with our union communication and relationships, and make sure that we're hearing each other and finding alternative ways if since we couldn't give that on schedule step.
Okay. And just one more question here. And I couldn't find the answer, and here we are, so I was gonna wait for this presentation.
Sure.
The Michigan Teachers certification, is that a mandatory requirement in the state of Michigan?
Yep.
Period.
That is, period.
Okay.
And I talked a little bit about alternative routes, meaning that let's say you have a bachelor's degree and you want to get your teaching certificate. There are agencies that we can partner with, and we've tried that with a few folks. One did not work out as well as we had hoped it to work out, but there's alternative ways. There's also like year-long, we can give permits. So depending on the permit, though, it'll give you a year to get your out-of-state license together or certification, or get your certification completed. But some of those permits are only good for 1 year. The other thing that we see challenging is the MTTC exam. So in order to get your certification, you have to pass the MTTC exam. That's the Michigan exam for your endorsement. And we have folks that struggle with that. They're great teachers, but maybe not the best test takers. So we put them on sub permits, or they sub in the district, and we try and keep them motivated and connected so that we can give them more time to take the test again. I've worked with the state, and I've asked them about that. There's no wavering there.
Okay.
There's some non-negotiables. They are redesigning how teacher certification looks and works to give more flexibility, but you do have to be a certified teacher.
Okay.
You also have to be a certified administrator.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
Any other questions from the members of the board? Trustee Hoyter.
Thank you. So I'm thinking back to a conversation I had a few days ago with a friend of mine who's a ER doctor, and he was telling me about how there's this crisis in emergency rooms where they have all these open positions and no one to fill them. And it seems like in every field you go to, that is existing. Obviously, it's a lot harder and a longer path to fill positions in an emergency room than it is in a school district. But I wonder, as you're having, and I understand they're limited conversations, as you're talking to prospective teachers in these job fairs, people who are looking to go into the profession, what are they telling you about what they're looking for in choosing a school district, because they are in a position where they can make a choice? What are you hearing in those conversations?
they want to make a difference. I mean, you know, that's the core of educators. And when I hear that, I love to hear that. They want to make a difference with kids and with families. That's the number one. They want to get involved beyond, a lot of them will say they want to get involved beyond the school day. So our Schedule B is now offering a lot of opportunities for our teachers to get involved after the school day with an increase in pay in that area as well. You know, people want to feel connected to a place. It's harder to leave when you have relationships and when you know people are relying on you and care about you. And I think that is like the essential of what educators are. And the service industry is getting hit hard. We're in the service industry. We provide a service to our community. Your ER doctors are in the service community. And when you look at those professions of service, we have human beings in front of us. We have kids in front of us. And when we're not filling those jobs, or if we have subs in there, we're not providing what kids are choosing, why they're choosing to come here. And it's, again, not just Oak Park, it's around the state. We have to make education more attractive again. And, you know, I have my own wacky ideas and say them when I can on the right platform. But, you know, when you kind of diminish the retirement piece and the insurance piece, and when teachers are starting out at $42,000 and 20% automatically goes to insurance, with a small wage like that, that becomes very expensive. And so we need to make it more attractive as a profession again. And what I hear a lot of teachers who have been in the profession get frustrated about is we're not treated like professionals anymore. I brush my teeth every day, but I would never grab the hand of a dentist and stop them to say, you need to pick a different drill. Our teachers get questioned all the time because everyone's gone to school, right? I've gone to school, therefore I should know. No, our jobs are hard. The educators in our district have masters, some double masters, doctorates. They are educated, and teaching is a science and art. And our parents, our community members out there, I say out there in TV land, need to start realizing, I think they got a little bit of a dose of reality when we were remote for 18 months. Parents, you know, you heard parents say, I don't know how teachers do it all the time. They have 25, 30 kids in their classroom, and they're working miracles. I think they got a reality check, but I feel like amnesia setting in now, and they have to start treating our teachers with a higher regard of professionalism. And I think that has drove a lot of teachers out. They're exhausted. They're exhausted by being questioned by every move they try and make.
So those are the things outside, some of those things are things outside of our control. If I'm understanding you right, part of what you're saying is that what we need to do a better job of as a district is making Oak Park stand out in terms of our mission and vision, so that people are connected, both the people who are here feel connected with that mission and vision, and people who are considering coming here are connected with that mission and vision, so that they understand that the unique opportunities in Oak Park to make a difference that may not be there in some other places.
Yep.
Is that right?
When I explain to folks that our model is to have a gen ed and special ed social worker in every building, to have a school psych in every building, to have a instructional coach in every building, that is very attractive to new candidates when they hear the support systems that we're willing to do. Now, our challenge is to make sure we're doing it, to have those positions in place and maintain those positions. But that's unusual, and that is very attractive to candidates to know that we are making sure our buildings are equipped with lots of different support systems. You all should feel good about that and really proud that that is a commitment we've made as a district.
And then my other question is, when we look at the structure of our collective bargaining agreement, are there ways in terms of structure that that speak to what we're incentivizing in terms of longevity versus people who are coming in. What are you hearing in terms of the feedback that we're getting from people who are leaving when it comes to the structure of our collective bargaining agreement?
A lot of the folks that left were upset about the steps. So there's one thing there. One of the things that we have to do and have a responsibility to do is be extremely transparent about our finances and do as much discussions about what that means and what flexibility it gives us with salaries across the board. So negotiating, I think one of the things that was helpful in this last round was that we didn't just look at it as everybody gets the same. We examined the teachers that have been here for a long time and made it through the recession and made adjustments where people were hit the hardest. Where we did increase the first step, we also increased step 12 and added longevity and a robust Schedule B. So the pay is better, for sure, and we really drilled down to see where people were affected the most, especially around 2008, 10, when the recession will never recover fully. But we did some real creative things in that area. We fell short with the wage reopener this year.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Hitchcock, did you want to make a comment?
Maxine.
Oh, I'm sorry. You want to hold it? Okay. Trustee Goodfriend?
I thank you for your presentation, but it's come to the point now that presentations say numbers. These are human beings. Our teachers are human beings.
Yes,
and I
yes.
understand that. And to become a human being,
Ms. Goodfriend, would you please speak up so she can hear you?
oh, I'm
Or speak
sorry.
into the microphone directly. There you go.
Okay. Our teachers are human beings. And many times you've heard me say, many, 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 many times, that they're my friends. And they are my friends. That I could walk into any building or get a phone call any time, day or night, because they felt the board was a friend. And we don't have that communication. And I have had, I can't count how many calls I get of unhappiness that are trying to hold on. Okay? So I really believe it's now that we, the board, and the central administration office have to sit down and take off our coats and go to work. Our work is changing the top, bringing in more, how should I put it with being genteel? I'm not genteel. I'm very sensitive about this, and I'm very concerned because I get many calls. Today was another one, okay? So what I'm saying is now it is time for you, Ms. Diglio, Ms. Batiste, Dan, I can't remember your name so because I'm old, so I'll just call you Dan. Okay, what I'm saying is it's now time to sit down and say, let's work at it. What do we have to do in central office to show that we're a family again? This is not a family.
So
This
if
was a
I'm,
family city, and they're not a part of the family, and they're afraid. They're afraid of being talked down to, not treated well, okay? I'm being as honest as I can publicly. I could be a lot more honest if it wasn't on public and that we, as 7 board members and our administration here begin without any agenda other than working to see how we, and you as a part of we, can change our ways to become inclusive with our staff and our friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goodfriend. Any other comments from members of the board? Dr. Hitchcock, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, I was just going to add to one of the questions that Trustee Smith asked. It was about certification and is there any leeway? So I just wanted to share that was a discussion that came up when we were in Washington, D.C. with the U.S. Department of Education, and they talked about having a plan to relax some of the strenuous certification requirements as a result of the shortage, but it appeared that those strategies are not going to take place for 2 or 3 years. Following that Wednesday, I had a conversation with someone, a lobbyist and a representative from the Michigan Department of Education, with some other superintendents on the call. And they had, backed this really strenuous expectation in terms of certification. That even though we're in the midst of the staffing shortage nationwide, particularly here in Michigan, that they're unwilling to relax any of those certification requirements right now. So I guess my ask of you is, not only you, but all board members in this venue, is that the Michigan Association of School Boards indicates that part of the role of the school board, of a school board member, is to serve in an important political role to improve public education in our state. And what does that mean? It means individual board members lobbying their state legislators and U.S. Congress representatives for the passage of laws and adoptions of funding programs to enhance public education. So some of what we've heard here this evening, is the how, and many of our questions, I think, at this board table are about the how, and they really need to be about the what. What can we collectively do? And specifically, through the Michigan Association of School Boards, that is a specific area where our school board can really play an active role in helping. But looking at the state legislators and U.S. Congress for assistance with some of these global issues. And if you need information about who those individuals are, I would be happy to share their contact information. I reach out to them frequently. I am working to get a meeting as we speak with Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence and talk with our state representative Regina Weiss on a regular basis. But we need a broader push, because it was clear in Washington, D.C., as well as it is here on the state level, that there is a disconnect between how urgent this issue is.
That's right.
Thank you, Dr. Hitchcock.
Anything from any other members of the board? Trustee Hoyt.
I just want to remind the board of our code of ethics and our primary responsibility as board members, as we all agreed to in our code of ethics, to represent all school district constituents honestly and equally, and not to surrender our responsibilities to any individual group. So all of the different groups that are represented by the board, students, teachers, community members, businesses, administrators, staff, are all part of that Oak Park family, and we need to make sure that we're not even implying that we have a preference for one over the other, and also that when we receive communication or requests for communication from members of the community that we share that through the proper channels so that we can be sure that those communications are consistent with the board as a whole. As individual board members, right, we know that we have no legal authority and really we exist as a board. And so it's important that we have open communication and respect for all members of our district community.
Thank you, Trustee Hoyta. And I would second your point about that. I think it's imperative that we note that we are here for all members of the Oak Park Schools family, if you will, all constituents of the and stakeholders of the Oak Park Schools family, and none above the other. We're here for all of them. Respectfully, I have not received any calls as it relates to this matter or anything personally relative to pay or anything. I have not received any, and had I would have tried to run that through the administration to deal with that as it is the proper protocol. And so I would ask that each of us follow suit in that regard and do the same. This is obviously sobering and in some respect troubling. I noted that you said one thing we can do is to promote more about programming. Are we there yet where we have started that, or are there some things coming on the horizon with regard to some of our programming that we still need to promote? The Messenger and any other things that we want to highlight in terms of successes or plans for the future or anything of that nature.
I know there's a lot of marketing going on with the leadership of Brandy North and teams that are going to be getting that out, which will be very good. And yes, we work on master scheduling as a district, not as individual schools, and we're working really hard to open up as many avenues for kids as possible. That's gonna always be ongoing, always should be ongoing. But yep, we are working on that.
Yeah, I know that other districts are starting to prepare for open enrollment or touting what they're going to be doing and things of that nature. They've already started their marketing, and if we haven't gotten there, just hope to see some, make sure that we're doing our part so that we can highlight what we're doing here in Oak Park.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the board.
Anything else from members of the board? No. Trustee Goodfriend.
In regards to the remark you just made about the marketing, you're seeing it on some brilliant TV spots showing now of the different districts, and it's brilliant, it's warm and fuzzy, and it's you listen. It's really been terrific, and they are marketing right now. They're marketing.
Exactly. If you see something like that, I would share it with Dr. Hitchcock and say, "Here's what I saw. Are we doing something like this?" I mean, Dr. Hitchcock is probably sick of me because I always send her stuff that I see, whatever it is. She's probably like, "Okay, one of his emails again." But if you see something, please send it so that they can see what others are doing. I mean, imitation is the highest form of flattery, and if they're highlighting some things in a unique way that we can leverage, then we should be doing the same. So, thank you. Do you want to?
I can address it now.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that I think marketing is extremely important. So much so that in the last 2 years that I've been here, we have marketed extensively through not only on Channel 4 with various commercials, on the radio, on live streaming, any streaming channels that people have access to. Commercials were there, on social media, in newspaper ads. sending flyers to multiple zip codes, passing out flyers, attending farmers market events and sharing that information. So that huge signs and in various areas throughout the district, as well as in every school environment. And that I know I've shared that exhaustively at this at the board table on many different occasions where all of those things are located. In terms of what that looks like for this year, we have to be cognizant of the notion that with our schools of choice program, we have some decisions to make. We've all recognized, and I think would acknowledge that it was disappointing that our enrollment, we did not retain the number of students with our enrollment that allowed us to give teachers a pay increase during that wage reopener time period. Again, all the marketing and campaigning and signs and commercials and videos in the world, those things are about attracting new students to the district. Our issue, based on our data, is not attracting new students to the district. Our issue is retaining the students that we currently have. So our plan is to continue with all of the efforts that we have previously made. But one of the things that I have been committed to is addressing the retention issue. And that issue has to be addressed within the walls of our school environments.
Yeah.
And so I don't want that point to be lost, because it doesn't matter how many posts we have on Twitter, if that isn't impacting our students in classrooms right now, in our families right now, it doesn't change anything. It just recycles 800 students, 800 old students walk out, and we get 800 new students.
Thank you, Dr. Hitchcock. Our next presentation is a mid-year benchmark assessment. Cassandra Baptiste, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, will be presenting. Thank you.
All right, greetings everyone in the Oak Park community, greetings board. This evening, I'm presenting the Fall to Winter 2021-2022 Benchmark Assessment Review. The outline of this presentation is we'll have an introduction, giving you some context around our benchmark assessments. The second part of it will be reviewing district-wide data, and then finally we'll have our conclusion, our next steps, and beyond. And so with our introduction and background, context and just some information, there's 5 key indicators within the iReady platform that they found that when school districts engage in supporting their students with increasing and creating substantial growth while addressing unfinished learning, these are the 5 key areas: promoting student self-efficacy, building a can-do culture, thinking differently about schedules and structures, scaffolding and supports for grade level success, and then ultimately bringing families into the work. And so where we are right now as a district is thinking differently about schedules and structures, scaffolding and supports for grade level success, determining goals for bringing our families into the work, while at the same time maintaining student self-efficacy and a can-do culture around benchmark assessments and learning. And so just for some background information, there are national norms and also the Michigan placement distribution. And this is as of February 20th, 2022. So it says 220 at the top, it's for this year. What iReady has done is they've shared historical normed data from winter 2018, 2019, and then of course the following year, the pandemic took place, and the following 2 years, that data, they have not found it to be as reliable as in years past, in a typical school year, without disruption to the educational experience. So we have the next bar chart, is the national in-school winter data from 2021 to 2022. So there's been a skip from 2018, 2019 to now 2021, 2022, the national data, and then the Michigan data for this winter. And the final column shows our district and how we compare nationally, historically, nationally, and then within the state of Michigan, where we compare. And again, the indicators are color coded. You'll have green. The darkest green is mid on grade or above. So for this point of the school year, students who are mid on grade or above. The lighter green is early on grade. The yellow is 1 grade below. The lighter red is 2 grades below. And the darkest red is 3 grades below. So this is where the last column at the end, where we are as a district for math. So within the analysis of this data, we had in the fall 1,973 students who took the assessment, and in the winter we had 1,902 students who took the assessment, and this is specifically for K-8 again. So our 9-12 data is also included in this, but iReady specifically uses norm data for grades K-8, and so I have them offer presentations to us at the district level, and they're going to give it to us at the K-8 level. So this is not including 9-12, but the following slides will. Students who were included in fall to winter comparisons, K-8, 1,854 students, and then for personalized instruction, students who are actively grades K-8 using the personalized learning platform, it shares that number as well. And then for reading, the same thing. In the fall, we had 1,982. In the winter, we had 1,906. And then we've got the comparison data, 1,863 students and 1,667 students using the personalized learning platform in reading across K-8. National norms and Michigan placement distribution, this is specifically for reading, and this is really important to us at the district level and also at the building level, because the last column, the darkest green, is what shows us how close to proficiency we will. It gives us predictive information about outcomes on the M-STEP. I mean, you never know what can happen on that day. It's a day that students go in and take an assessment within a given amount of time. Depends on their preparation, depends on so many other factors going on in their lives, but we anticipate roughly 8% or more, ideally, of students achieving proficiency on the M-STEP. And I have previous data of where we started in the fall, and ideally, by the time it's the spring, what does that look like? And then keep in mind that our spring data will be after the M-STEP is given. So this is actually the data that we use to determine as close to proficiency as possible on the state assessment for both reading and math. I did cover this already, but just the explanation of, just so everybody can understand what the relative placements mean by color. And then now get into the data. So we're going to start off with math. And there are pictures of our students all across the district, so I wanted to make sure to just highlight and humanize the data. So math, whole district, we've got the top bar graph, the very top shows us most recent. So the most recent assessment that the students took in February. We have a growth that took place where, there's a lot going on with this chart. One of the things that I want to orient the public to is we've not only have everything color-coded, but the thing with iReady is that we're actually able to identify which students moved and academically what's happening with those students. So we have, from fall to winter, 66 students are now at mid or above grade level, and that's up from 7 students. So at the beginning of the year, we started with 7 students mid or at grade level for that time of year. We're now at 66. We had 68 students who were early on grade level. We now have 150. We had 1 grade level below. We started off with 599 students. K-8, we're showing, for math, 759 students. And so for the dark green, green, and yellow, you want those numbers to go up Whereas for the red and dark red, you want those numbers to go down because it's the inverse. Those students are now moving out of the red into yellow or out of the red and into green. How have relative placements changed from fall to winter? So again, this shows us our K-8 data, the number of students who took the assessment, kindergarten through grade 8, and the percentage of where they are at on a spectrum from mid-on grade level for this time of year, we're at the middle of the year, all the way to students who are 3 or more grades below grade level. And you can see that there has been growth across the board. However, there are some grades where they've showcased much more growth. One of the things that I'd like for the board to consider, and also our greater public to consider, is the students who are in kindergarten, this is their first year. Those who were in the second grade, they endured the pandemic in the 2019-2020 school year. And that's actually the most critical grade level for us, where we're seeing, and I'll have more data points that show where our students are in terms of their annual typical growth within those particular grade levels. So there's what we're doing at the school, and it's not to blame our families, but where our students were coming from. Imagine if you were a kindergartner experiencing the pandemic and your level of understanding and trauma. That still doesn't take away from the work that we do have to do as a community to support our students, but that is something that should be taken into consideration. The students that are coming in kindergarten, this is their first year of in-person instruction, and there have been interruptions. We've had snowstorms, we've had various reasons why we had to return to virtual. And then, of course, thinking about our students who are in the third grade, that's a pivotal year as we have the Read by Grade 3 laws. And so there's a focus on literacy with our LEO coaches, with our Title I teachers, with our instructional coaches at the elementary level, the MTSS teams, K-12. And then at the middle school level, there's been a significant amount of growth that we've seen. And just looking at these numbers in the fall, in the 6th grade, we had 65% of our students who were 3 or more grade levels below. They're showing growth where 47% of those students, that number has decreased. And that's across the board in grades 6, 7, and 8. And so I just want to take a moment and focus on secondary. So for our secondary data, we had to disaggregate, we pull this data ourselves at the district level. And so we see that in the 9th grade, you can see in the fall, we had 9% of students who are now at 13%, and then we had 4% of students who were in yellow, so approaching grade level or 1 grade level, we're now at 7%. We would like to see much more growth across the board in math, and we've had conversations at the district level and also with our building leaders about this data. They have their individual schools' data to see what's happening at every single building, the number of students who are showing growth, the grades that are in critical need, the intervention supports that are needed. And we have found, to Carol's previous great presentation on the impact of teacher retention. So we know that our math department, there have been quite a few teachers who have left the math department. What does that mean for math instruction? The students, we're still responsible as a district to support student learning even when a teacher leaves. What does that look like instructionally within a grade band? And also pedagogically, what kind of moves are taking place within the math department, K-12, not just one particular area. And so we would like to see more growth at the secondary level, and we know, as I shared earlier, some key indicators, thinking about structures around scheduling differently. What does that look like to build intervention periods in the instructional day at the secondary level to provide targeted interventions specifically in math? And of course, reading. We have Read 180 that we implemented this year to support with that, but we'll get to reading. So our next slide is on how students did in the district. How did they grow between fall and winter, and again, specifically in math. And so we see that, I'm just gonna explain this. This is like a mathy chart, but if you're really into scatter plots, you'll see your eye will gravitate right where it needs to go. But the y-axis is showing growth, annual typical growth, and the x-axis is showing performance on the assessment itself. The very first line at 50 is our national norms. This is the median. 50%. 70, or this dotted line, I should say, I'm saying 70, but it's 60. This dotted dash line that you see, those are the national norms of where a student would place at this time per year. 50, or the very first line right down here at the bottom, though that's the median. 50 is the median. So what we can see is that kindergarten, grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8 at this time of year are showcasing, while there's many of our students are still in low performance, they're still showcasing high growth. And we see for grades 1, 2, 3, and 4, we have low performance and low growth, and our 9 through 12 also falls in this category as well. So we know that there is a possibility for our students to showcase high growth, and they will be in the low performance range if they're 2 or 3 grade levels below. But as you move them through out of the red and into the yellow and into the green, then these diamonds can move into quadrant 1 and 4, and ideally quadrant 1, where you have high performance and high growth. So that's our goal, moving more students across this line. And so now we look at math. Again, the median percent of typical and stretch growth achieved from fall 2021 and 2022, and I want to take a moment and discuss, at the last board meeting, I discussed the annual typical growth and shared that data. I also want to share stretch data and what that means. So your annual typical growth is within a given year, how much you will grow according to your grade level, and it's normed nationally. Your stretch growth, these are ambitious growth goals, whereby even if you are 1 or 2 grade levels below, what would it take to get you as close to grade level as possible? That's your stretch growth. And so what we see is that across in grades, and you want students to be above 50%. So we see that for kindergarten, they're above 50% for both stretch and annual typical. And you see for grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, they've all met their annual typical growth. The blue, the stretch growth, your stretch growth is typically within a range of 20 to 30%. So you want students to supersede that, or you want them to at least make 20 to 30% of stretch growth. So we have a targeted area for grades 1, 2, and 3, where we really want to know what's happening not only instructionally, but are the teachers using the iReady platform? Are the students engaging in personalized lessons? Do our families, are they aware of the work that we're doing with the iReady platform? What's happening in our targeted intervention supports, our core instruction when a teacher is with the whole group of students? What's happening in regards to small group instruction, particularly in those grades? Because we know that when that type of work takes place, we do see student growth. It also impacts the type of professional development that we offer to our teachers, because we see we do need to move in the direction of targeted supports for math instruction. So again, this has more information about stretch growth and annual typical growth. And this supports us in making our district-wide goals, and also supports buildings in making their building goals in regards to student achievement. So we know that in the fall, the bar at the very top, the bar graph at the top shows us 40% of our students were 3 or more grade levels below, 26% were 2 or more grade levels below, 32% were 1 grade level or approaching, and then the remainder were either at grade level or approaching grade level. So that number has shrunk, which is a good thing for our winter placements, where we went from 40% to 28% of 3 grade levels below, 26% to 22% of 2 grade levels below. We went from 32% to 40%. We want that yellow to grow. So we have an 8% growth here, and then the remaining students here, 10% are either approaching or at mid-grade level. So the 2 bar graphs at the bottom are showing, well, if we meet our annual typical growth of 50% from winter to spring, that goal in itself will help us move students closer to proficiency. And even more importantly, teaching our teachers, our building leaders, and ultimately our parents and our students that stretch growth is really important. While you may be grade levels below, if you do focus on your stretch growth, like they say, you know, aim for the star, reach for the moon, land on the stars. You know, like you can, you know, to not push a student over the edge, but at least help them set ambitious goals where they see more for themselves and know that they can do more, and really believe that. So one of the ways that that's been happening within our district is, and I credit Megan Mitchell, she's an instructional coach who supports me a great deal with data and assessment work, and just really innovative ways of creating worksheets where students can talk about their iReady data, where they understand what's being presented to them. Parents understand the score. Students can then come up with strategies of what they can do to better their learning outcomes. And she's at the middle school, and that's part of that whole middle school team of creating the targeted intervention within their master schedule, and the Principal Regina. There's a lot of work that really went into targeted supports for iReady, and we're seeing those students who were in the 8th grade when the pandemic took place, the beginning of the pandemic, they were 6th graders. This is their first year in full-on middle school. There's a lot of growth and opportunity for them as well, and they shouldn't, you know, no student should be disregarded of, oh, you know, now you're in the 9th grade, here you are in the 9th grade. No, what happened? You know, where were you 2 years ago? What supports might you need? So this right here just shows us our domain level performance, how it compared to the fall, where we are within our district, and where we would place nationally, where nationally the other districts are placing, pardon. And so we see that across our district, there is a focus that's needed on numbers and operations. And I want to credit my team, Katie Morrison and Jay Hafner. Jay shared a quote, you've got to grow before you master. And Katie, we all discussed what takes place when you know numbers and operations. You're able to do what you need to do in algebraic thinking. You're able to engage in number sense. You're able to, well, that is number sense, number and operations. But you're able to engage in measurement and data and have a comprehensive understanding of what that is, and then geometry as well. So that's what that slide is all about. And then we get into our reading. The only picture that's not of our district is Michelle Obama, but one day she'll visit us. Hopefully. So we have reading, our whole district. And again, if you look at that most recent, that very top bar graph, our most recent gives us 7%. So we're anticipating at least 7% proficiency on the M-STEP, looking at our predictive data, and what that means for us as a district and what we need to do to get our students even higher in years to come. So again, we started off in the fall with 69 students who were mid or above grade level. We're now at 170. We started off with 165 who were early on. We're now at 285. We started with 682 students who were 1 grade level below. We're now at 710. And then we're shrinking the numbers in the red. So 414 students, we started at 523. That number has gone down to 414. And then 3 or more grade levels below, we started at 1,059. We're now at 919. And the same goes for the high school as well. And what we did for the high school is we disaggregated that data within the building by grade level, each grade level, what that movement looked like. And then we have how have relative placements changed from winter to fall. It's the same thing like in the previous slide that I showed you for math. This shows you for reading. And then again at the secondary level, what that data looks like for grades 9 through 12, where our students are placing, the difference between the fall and the winter. Very similar data, our student growth data juxtaposed with their performance, and we see that grades 6, 7, and 8 are above the national norm for annual typical growth. Grades K, 4, 3, and 5 are above the median, and we need some work on grades 1 and 2. And again, there was a lot of targeted data on grades 1 and 2, specifically for reading. 1, having our teachers and our students engage in using the platform. 2, what are the 5 pillars of literacy that teachers are engaging in and pedagogical strategies that are being implemented for early childhood literacy, supporting our LEO coaches and the work that they're doing with Oakland schools. and Title I parent meetings that are taking place at the elementary level to support parents with literacy. And then, of course, National Reading Month, the celebrations that we have across our district to amplify reading and get students to engage in a love of reading. And with that, I want to thank Ms. Denard, Ms. Meek, and Ms. Ivy. I had the chance to read to their classes today, their kindergarten classes, and I am really excited. I'm hoping that the board can join at Einstein Elementary on Wednesday. Our students and our staff absolutely love and would love that opportunity to engage, you know, with having people read to our students and show, you know, just that love for reading. I think that those are the small things that shift culture and support in student growth ultimately. So shout out to those 3 teachers and Mr. Haley for welcoming us today. This shows our annual typical data juxtaposed to our stretch growth. And so we get into the nitty-gritty with stretch growth at the building level and district-wide. We showcase more and talk more about annual typical growth because that's very relative to how students perform or where they should be by the time they take an M-STEP exam. And then, of course, our domain level performance and how it compares to the fall. And so even thinking about what's highlighted for us to work on is phonics and vocabulary. But if you look at the, I would say we need more than that. If you look at kindergarten, our district average at this time of year, it's 1% of what would be showcased, like our mid-placement. Nationally, it's supposed to be 6%. That's for the fall. So what that tells us is, again, a program like Lessinger, what a wonderful opportunity to have students at the pre-K level, at the early elementary level, before they even go into kindergarten, and support them with rigorous academics before they even get into kindergarten. We actually have that chance to work with students and families before they're even, 5, 6 years old, to support them with literacy and math through our curriculum and various activities, and get those numbers up. And going down this chart, just looking at vocabulary in particular, phonics and vocabulary, no matter the grade level, what type of activities can we engage in as a district? How do we engage in word study? What's the word of the day by building? What's the word of the day that you can share with family? How do we get students engaged in not only using vocabulary, but engaging in word study and different reading competitions and activities that support literacy? And then in conclusion, our next steps and beyond. Now, a lot of these are from in the fall. When I presented in the fall, those goals have not changed. As a Department of Teaching and Learning, we're focused on Michigan continuous improvement, we're focused on district-wide professional learning opportunities, and we're focused on a viable curriculum for all. So analyzing the different curriculum gaps that we have and where we're filling those gaps, what type of curriculum we'll be purchasing in the future, and how we engage in the curriculum review process. And so these are similar slides also in the fall, explaining what MyKIP is, talking about whole child data and development, and then various systems thinking that we engage in as a district. So some of that work could look like is the instructional leadership teams that our buildings are engaged in. They're working on developing professional learning communities where teachers bring student work samples and talk about student performance by criteria of how many students do you want to move from one group to another group, which students are struggling, what supports are you putting in place, and having a grade level discussion about this to discuss trends and interventions. And then this is just some information on continuous improvement strategies that we're engaging in. And then the beginning of the year, what we had in place from August till March, we're in March right now, so we're in data and action plan review phase is what we're engaging in. And part of that also looks at the curriculum that we have in place. K-5 is going to be expiring, so we have our MTSS teams reviewing curriculum and supporting and making curriculum selection for English language arts, and the same thing at the high school level, grades 9 through 12. This curriculum is expiring. How are we using our data to make decisions data-informed decisions on curriculum for our students in those grade levels because that curriculum is expiring, and the same for science. So any curriculum that is up for expiration, how do we engage in looking at vertical alignment, so grade by grade, what students need, instructional strategies, professional development, and doing that together as a team. So that's where we are. In April, we'll have additional professional development supported by iReady. So we'll have iReady consultants coming into our district to do PD on that day. And we're engaged, we're in the thick of summer school planning. So there's that happening as well. And I'll talk more about that at our next board meeting, the plans that we have around that. And just additional work with MTSS, supporting data dives, because by the time we have June, then we'll have a full year of our first year of iReady implementation. So what next steps are we taking for the following year? And then in August, our staff professional development. And now at this point, we'll have M-STEP data in addition to iReady data. And I just want to share publicly that the MDE has not waived opting out. And so as a district, we are required, we have a 95% participation requirement for our students to come in and take the M-STEP to get a whole picture of our schools' data systems, or data support systems as the MDE puts it. So that would be work keys, PSAT, SAT, I'm going off into the weeds, but all those data points in addition to iReady will support with professional development and curriculum selection in the upcoming year. And then finally, these are just some actions that leaders engage in to support iReady work and to help us. You know, I'm talking about iReady work, but ultimately I want us to think about students and student outcomes. So what is it that we're doing with students to get growth, to showcase learning? So engaging with stakeholders, establishing structures and schedules, which is right where we're at right now. At the high school, they're building their master schedule. At the elementary school, they're working on what the special schedules look like and next steps, staffing, getting good data, using data and fostering a data-driven culture, which we do that with talks about data with our students, with our families, getting them to understand what the data is, what it means, and how they can actually have agency in making changes for the better, and what supports we give to our teachers, what professional development do we give, what culture do we build around teaching and learning, and then actively monitoring and adjusting what we do and why we do it. So that is all for my fall to winter data presentation. And I just thank everyone. And I'm really excited for our graduates this upcoming year and beyond. And more importantly, how are we preparing our Oak Park students?
Thank you, Ms. Baptiste. Are there any questions or comments from members of the board? Trustee Hoyter.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baptiste. So anytime we look at that phrase, college and career ready, I feel the need to point out to the community, and I think it stands out also when we look at this. If you pay, when we read this data and we see that the national standard is below 30% on a lot of these things, so that does speak to some extent to challenges in our education system. I think it speaks much more to the flaws in that standard that we call college and career ready. So for those in the community who are watching this and think what one would imply from reading that one should be at 100% of college and career ready to succeed in college, that's not actually what this data is showing us. In fact, there's, am I correct in saying that the connection between the quote-unquote college and career readiness standard and actual success in college and career is not there statistically when we look at that? What is when we say college and career ready, what are we talking about?
You're asking about statistical significance between college and career readiness and then the actual outcome for students at the post-secondary level?
Correct.
Well, I'll use myself as a case study. I never did well on these tests. And I have 2 Ivy League degrees. So I'm like, it can happen. But it did require remedial courses.
Okay.
My freshman year. So there is some statistical significance, and what they do at the post-secondary level, there's more supports that you need, period. There's just more supports that you need once you make that transition, the way high school is set up and the way college is set up, it's a different ballgame. So to answer your question, now I'm making it personal, which I really probably shouldn't, but I personally do not believe that you need to showcase all proficiency across the board. Like, clearly if 30%, that's the national level, then what's happening with the 70%? But then I also know on the flip side, you have students who graduate and are maybe in their first semester of college and they fail. And they've taken out student loans. And so there are indicators as to how well students will perform and what they do at the post-secondary level when they're determining course syllabi, like let's say for biology. They reach all the way back to 4th grade standards in New York State, 5th grade standards in a state like Michigan to determine what type of standards-based, there's no standards at the post-secondary level, but any type of standards-based curriculum that they can offer, what should you have known by the 5th grade? What should you have known by the 11th grade in order to be successful at the post-secondary level?
But I believe so first of all, just statistically, if the national standard is 30%, then what you would expect to see is 70% of American college students not succeeding in college, which is not what we see. We do see a lot of students who are taking remedial classes, but I think it was Governor Snyder who ran the numbers years ago and said that I forgot the exact number, but it was some significant portion of students who graduate from University of Michigan would not meet the college, meaning after 4 years of college, would not meet what is being called college and career ready, because college and career ready is an ACT number that's based on their statistical analysis of students who are getting only A's and B's in all of their classes. So just in terms of what we're talking about, I think it's important to contextualize the numbers we're looking at and then talk about the work that we have ahead of us, because it's important. When we look at I noticed when I looked at the high school numbers, a couple of things. One thing I noticed is we have a large number of high school students who are not included in this data, if I'm reading that correctly. So, like, if I'm looking at math, in 9th grade we tested 194 out of 294 students. Is that what I'm looking at there?
Yeah, and for the high school, the thing is, because the data is K-8 normed, and it's normed up to the 10th grade, but at the high school, one of the things that we face is, the seriousness of iReady, and my thing with the high school, especially this year, is in looking at performance on the NWEA with student participation, we have never met the criteria of 95% participation in grades 9 through 12. And this year, we actually made above 80%. We had snowstorms, and we also have a massive truancy and attendance issues at the high school level. But kudos to the high school team, because one of the things that they're working on at this time is scheduling and making it so that the teacher that teaches the course is ideally administering the assessment. And then the other thing to consider in math is that in this year, I believe we had about 5 math teachers who left the district between August 31st and present day. And that's at the high school. So what does that look like when there's a substitute that's offering the assessment on that particular day? And I don't want to put our substitutes down because we need them, but there is a difference when your classroom teacher is administering an assessment and the serious to it, and a consistency in the communication. At that point, you're getting communications from the district or the building. But if you had your teacher there, you would get that communication from your teacher as well. Or those data chats that I spoke of earlier that Megan Mitchell, has developed, you would have teachers across the board are using that, especially at the middle school. Well, you would have your teacher to have that conversation with you about your math performance. So there are many different layers as to why those numbers look the way they look at the secondary level.
And because it's normed K-8, is that why we're not seeing those secondary numbers on the scatter plots on the performance charts?
Yeah, it's normed till 10th grade. And so many school districts use what they call SROs. it's evading my mind right now, what SLO, student learning objectives, SLOs. And they do that at the secondary level. We don't do that at Oak Park. And so we try to use, we use norm data up until the 10th grade. And then another calculation that we've gotten iReady to support us with so that we can calculate student growth 9-12.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Lunkins.
You know what, I can hear you. And if I can, I'll come closer. I'll socially distance, but I'll come closer.
Just try to talk into the microphone.
I just want to say, as a parent and as a grandparent who have kids in school, the charts that you showed us made us stand up and start taking a notice as to why we're not teaching these kids. This suffering is right there in front of you, and the kids bring those who go to school, are in school, bring it home, and those who are at home learning, it's right there for them. And I can understand why we're still not at the point where we should be.
I really appreciate that, and that's why we fought tooth and nails. We need iReady at Oak Park. We need our families, we need our teachers, we need our students to understand the data, understand what it means, understand the domains, and understand what they can do to make a change in their learning.
Now, I can say that my granddaughter, who's in the 6th grade, she's using iReady.
Yeah.
Because every time I ask her, what are you doing? And trying to get information, actually finding out what they're doing, what they're requiring doing, she's doing it iReady. So why aren't we teaching these kids from 1st grade through 6th grade iReady, so by the time they get to 6th grade, they already know what they need to do?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's the goal, and it's our first year implementing it, so this is our second time taking the test within this year. In the spring will be our 3rd time, and then that makes 1 full year of the students not only using it, but getting used to taking the test in the fall, in the winter, in the spring, just like they did for NWEA. And then to your point, that's with using the personalized learning platform, and in particular in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, they really promote that and assign homework assignments, assign work for the students to do so that they can, in their own time, practice on the skills that they need to develop.
Then all they have to do is go on that iReady chart and it tells them what they haven't done, what they need to do, and what's expected of them the next period that they come to class. And it should be, me myself personally, it should be the same for all our students. But thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lunkins. Any other questions or comments from the members of the board? I have, did you have something, trustees? Okay. I have one. I did see some areas where where their students are making some gains, or moving from one area to the next, where we want them to, be making that transition from, areas where they were below grade level to working their way up to grade level. I saw some of that. And then I also noted, particularly at the high school with the higher grade levels, there was some regression there. And I assume that, part of that is some of the things you mentioned, including high absenteeism. Is there anything we can do to address that? Because that's troubling, because they start out, I'm not saying they start out great, but they're starting out higher, and as they work their way through to 12th grade, it's gotten progressively worse.
Yeah. So student engagement, just even having one reason to come to school, even if it has nothing to do with school, having one reason to come to school can get you into the actual building. What activities are you engaged in? What relationships do you have? How social emotionally you feel connected to the community? And then I do want you to consider, everybody to consider, that the higher you go in grade level, the less growth you are going to see from one grade to the next. So they don't typically anticipate that, and that's why the data is not normed in grades 11 and 12, because they don't anticipate that the students are gonna make that big of a jump in growth after the 10th grade. But to answer your question, that's one of our huge goal, like one of the biggest goals that we had last year, and that's why we brought on a partnership. I connected with Attendance Matters in San Francisco. They're a nationwide organization, and they supported us with targeted professional development for our building leaders. And then in the fall, we had professional development for all of our staff on when a student misses a certain number of days, what does that mean for them in performance-wise? Social, emotionally, the connections that they miss out on, but then academically, the long-term deleterious effect that it has, even beyond being in school, even beyond when they graduate, and even the ability to graduate.
Understood. Thank you. Anything else from members of the board? Did you want to? Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Mitchell. All right. We will go to reports, and we have one from Dr. Hitchcock.
Okay, good evening, trustees, Mr. President and trustees. First, I want to thank both Carol Diglio, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and Cassandra Baptiste, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, for providing the board and the community with some very thorough and transparent information this evening. You know, I value transparency and a partnership, and as Ms. Diglio mentioned in her presentation, it really is going to take all of us, every single individual that is affiliated with our school district, district administration, the board, building administration, teachers, ancillary staff, parents, community members. We can't allow ourselves to point fingers. We are such a divided society right now, and I would just caution us to do our best to put a bubble around Oak Park and try not to fall prey to the ills that plague our society with pointing fingers. We need each other. Each and every one of us needs each other, and more importantly, our kids. Every kid that walks through our doors every day, they need all of us to do as much adulting and supporting of each other as possible. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to something that we're very excited about, which is our commencement ceremony. We did have commencement last year, but as many of you know, we missed commencement the year before as a result of COVID-19. Last year, we had our commencement ceremony here at Oak Park High School. It was a fabulous event, but we have decided to return to the Aretha Franklin Amphitheater. And so our commencement for our 2022 graduates will be held on Saturday, June 11th at 10 a.m. Additional details will be sent to parents from the Oak Park High School administration. All board members will also receive an official invitation to this very important event, so we hope to see you there. Also, prom is back. We're really excited that we will also be able to have prom this year at the Meridian on Thursday, June 2nd, 2022, and that will be held in Farmington from 7 to 11 p.m. So we're super excited that these really important events for students and families are back, and our hope is that we can put the pandemic behind us. So please mark your calendars for those special events. I also want to remind you about our Secure Education Consultants assessment that was completed by a gentleman named Jason Russell. He shared his information with the community and the board a couple weeks ago. I was pleased to learn that Mr. Russell was also asked to testify as an expert in Lansing about the Michigan State Police Grant and try to encourage our legislature to allow school districts to utilize funding from the Michigan State Police Grant for the security assessment, because it was quite expensive. As Mr. Russell said, I had to do some arm twisting to get him to bring those dollars down. So we're proud of that. We also met again today. We've had several different smaller meetings about safety and security, but today we had a large meeting and went through the report of over 2 hours, discussed various additional security measures as it relates to the security assessment report. And those ideas that we generated, not only from today, but with principals, will go into our application for the Michigan State Police Grant. Then I know many of you probably saw this news story during February break. And if you haven't seen it already, you can go to Fox 2. But one of our students, Terrence Goodwin, he is a high school student here. He has a GoFundMe page that indicates that he is looking for a new wheelchair van with a lift. So if you are interested in contributing money to his GoFundMe page or reading the story, that information can be found in the Oak Park Advantage, which is a newsletter that is published every Friday. But you can access the Fox News Detroit to get the story. We are extremely proud of Terrence's 4.17 GPA, which will put, I'll speak for myself, put many of us to shame up here. So we are very proud of his academic commitment and excellence, and would encourage everyone to contribute to his GoFundMe page. Additionally, last time we met, which was last week, at our board meeting, we saw a presentation from EDK9. One of the components of EDK9 is to socialize the puppies that are used through their organization. And so we will have something called Puppy Happy Hour in our district that will allow students with a reward and the puppies to learn to be socialized. Our Puppy Happy Hours will take place at Pepper Elementary on April 22nd, OPA March 25th, and Oak Park High School on March 24th. And I know the staff and the students are looking forward to that event. Of course, any students who have allergies or have fears of pets, which with these little puppies, the biggest harm is probably they'll lick you to pieces. But they will not be required to participate if there's a fear or an allergy. Also want to remind our community that spring break officially begins on Monday, March 28th through Friday, April 1st. School will resume on April 4th, Monday, April 4th. And then on Friday, April 8th, we have a half day for students, and there is a full day for staff. They have a PM records day. And on Friday, April 15th, this was a change, just reminding everyone that there is no school for students on Friday, April 15th, but there is a professional development day for staff on Friday, April 15th. And then I would like to let the board and the community know that we received a letter from the Michigan Association of School Boards acknowledging the accomplishment of Trustee Corcoran for her 2021 achievement of completing individual and board development courses. She received and was highlighted for receiving the Certified Board Member Award, Award of Merit, and Award of Distinction. Trustee Corcoran's accomplishments will be celebrated at the Area School Board Association meeting, and specifically at the Michigan Association of School Board. Michigan Association of School Boards will hold a statewide recognition on Zoom on Wednesday, April 27th at 7 p.m. For anyone who would like to attend, you can do that at masb.org/MI Board Awards. And that concludes my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hitchcock. We have now, are there any questions from members of the board for Dr. Hitchcock? Trustee Goodfriend.
Is there going to be an honors convocation?
Honors convocation for the high school?
Yes.
They do not currently have, as far as I know, they do not currently have an honors convocation planned. However, I can reach out to them and see if they have one planned for this school year.
Thank you.
I'll follow up with the board on Friday in the update.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Hitchcock? Okay, seeing none, we've come to the part of the meeting where the public has an opportunity to address the board if it so desires. The public participation is one-way communication in which members of the public are asked to address the full board with the understanding that board members will not be able to respond. Trustee Smith, would you please provide the public comment guidelines?
Yes. Because the Oak Park Board of Education values public meetings, not just meetings in public, we welcome public comment on school issues. Speakers are asked to express themselves in a civil manner with due process for the dignity and privacy of others who may be affected by public comments. The public comment portion of the meeting cannot be used to make personal attacks against a school board member or school district employee that disrupts the order of the meeting and are totally unrelated to the manner in which the member or employee performs his or her duties. Speakers should be aware that if statements violate the rights of others under the law of defamation or invasion of privacy, such comments may result in legal liability. Most comments can be concisely stated in 3 minutes, and the board respectfully asks that comments remain focused on the topic or issue and not be directed at specific personnel or board members.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. With that said, are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? Trustee Smith, do we have any cards?
They have none.
No cards. Any members of the public who would like to address the board? Seeing none, we will now move to our action items. And the first one is licensure classroom furniture. Trustee Hoyda, can you read the motion?
Resolved that the Resolved that the Oak Park Board of Education awards the bid for Lessinger office and classrooms furniture to Interior Environments of Novi, Michigan in the amount of $285,233.22.
Motion is made by Hoyda and supported by Lunkins. Are there any questions from members of the board or comments on this? Hearing none, Ms. Greer, please call the roll.
Alvin,
Yes.
Goodfriend,
No.
Hoda,
Yes.
Lunkins,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes.
Okay. The motion does pass, and we will move to the next item, which is bid pack 2, Oak Park High School D-Wing, structural steel, mechanical, electrical, and general trades. Trustee Goodfriend, could you please read the motion?
I don't have it in front of me, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, no worries. Trustee Lunkins, do you have it? Okay. Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Okay, if you would please.
Yes. So this is the bid pack 2 Oak Park High School D-Wing, structural steel, mechanical, electrical, and general trades. Kevin Donnelly, Plant Moran, Cressa, and Krista Amelio, Rockford Construction. Recommended motion, Oak Park Schools 2021 Bond Program Contract Award. Recommendation for subcontract awards bid package number 2, Oak Park High School D-Wing HVAC improvements. Resolved that the Oak Park Board of Education approves the recommendation of the project team to enter into a subcontract agreement with the following subcontractors for the above noted projects. Bid package number 2, award recommendations, Great Lakes Welding and Fabrication, structural steel, $89,900. M.L. Schoiner, Construction Incorporated, General Trades, Carpentry, $64,200. Miller Bolt Incorporated, Mechanical, $560,000. Sawyer Services, Electrical, $263,700. 15% contingency, $146,670. Total award recommendation, $1,124,470.
Support.
Okay, motion is made by Smith, seconded by Hoyda. Are there any questions from the members of the board? No questions, no comments? Hearing none, Ms. Greer, please call the roll.
Smith,
Yes.
Lunkins, Alvin,
Yes.
Hoda,
Yes.
Goodfriend.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes, and we're moving to information items, and there aren't any. And so we will go to board and administration communications. Are there any communications from members of administration? Any communications from members of the board? Trustee Smith.
Yes, I just want to inform that on the, I know it's reading month, and I'm looking forward to participating on Wednesday at what's Einstein Elementary. So I will be there, and I've already set my time in for my job, and I have some time available. Yes.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you for your service.
I will be there as well, so I'll see you
I'll
there.
see you there, brother.
Oh, okay. So we got two of our board members will be there, ready, willing, and able to partake in reading.
Yes.
So, anything else from members of the board? Okay. Then we'll go to addenda. Any addenda from members of the administration? Any addenda from members of the board? Okay, no addenda. Trustee Smith, then if, as we get prepared to adjourn, would you please note the next meeting date?
Yes, the next meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Monday, April 11th, 2022, at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Oak Park High School Auditorium.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. If there's nothing else, then without objection, we will pass a motion to adjourn the meeting by unanimous consent. Is there an objection to doing so? Hearing no objection to doing so, we will adjourn.